publishers to transform subscription agreements to read and publish agreements. And I wanted to start with a slide showing the numbers that we heard this morning, showing the development of open access in Switzerland. I've got two versions on the left-hand side. The data shows number of publications from all Swiss authors, and the right side of the slide shows just correspondings with all Swiss authors. And for read and publish agreements, only the corresponding authors are important, because read and publish agreements only cover open access for correspondings with authors. And as you can see, the share of hybrid, which is the light blue on the right-hand side, and I just noticed that the color switched on the left side of the chart, they're supposed to be the same colors. So hybrid increased significantly in the past few years, and that was basically with the start of read and publish agreements. And you can also see that's what I tried to show with the little box, the dark blue box, that the share of read and publish agreements increased together with the share of hybrid. And the box is not exactly aligned with the hybrid, because that's on purpose, because some of our read and publish agreements actually also cover gold articles. So it's not that easy to align it exactly. Now, read and publish agreements you most probably heard about in the context of the big deal negotiations in Switzerland. And the big deal negotiations, they are done under the umbrella of Swiss universities, and they're aligned with the Swiss National Open Access Strategy. So the negotiations are actually one action line within the Open Access Strategy. And there's a negotiation mandate that defines the negotiation aims and objectives of our negotiations, and it also nominates the negotiation team, and all of this is done under the leadership of the Delegation Open Science. And the Delegation Open Science is also responsible for the strategic controlling of the negotiations. And the negotiation team, which is made up of rectors, researchers, library representatives, and members of my team, of the consortial staff. This team prepares the negotiations, conducts the actual negotiations, and also analyzes the offers, and then comes up with a recommendation which is presented to the Delegation Open Science, who then decides whether an offer by a publisher should be accepted or not. As I said, the negotiation mandate defines the aims. We are currently working with the second revised negotiation mandate, which has enhanced aims. So in the current round of negotiations, we try to cover all portfolios of a publisher, including prestigious titles, and also including all the publication venues, which is concretely also the gold portfolio of the publishers. And as you may know, with Springer Nature, we actually didn't reach a deal where we cover gold as well. And we decided for various reasons to accept this, and that's why we recommended a partial acceptance of the deal. That was actually 2 years ago. And the other aim that we currently still try to stick to is that we look for cost neutrality for the full portfolio. That was actually one of the reasons why we couldn't include gold with Springer Nature, because there's a lot of gold spent outside of the current agreement, and if we try to include the gold of Springer Nature, which is BMC, it would have meant substantial additional cost for the institutions, which you don't have in central budgets. What's also important to know is that the negotiation mandate, which is binding for the big deal negotiations, is actually also providing us the guidance for all the other read and publish negotiations that we do within the consortium of Swiss academic libraries. And this is showing you all the publishers that we currently have subscription licenses with, or actually used to have subscription licenses with. And as you can see, the majority of them are already moved to the blue bubble at the bottom. With all of the publishers in the blue bubble, we have a read and publish agreement in place. Most of the publishers in the top left gray bubble are right now the smaller publishers with whom, for various reasons, we don't yet have a read and publish agreement. Some of them don't offer a read and publish option, like, for example, HES, which publishes the Science Journal, or for example the JSTOR journals, which are a collection of society titles, and JSTOR is just not in a position to provide, or Project Muse to provide a read and publish deal that covers all the journals. We are also trying to have deals with the gold publishers, and as you can see, we have agreements with some of them, but not with all of them, and I mentioned already before Biomed Central BMC, which is owned by Springer Nature. And then there's one exception, American Physical Society. We don't have a consortial license with them at all in place, which makes it very difficult to get the read and publish license with them. We have different types of read and publish agreements, and that's what I'm trying to show here. And one of the reasons is that we may have a concept of what we consider an ideal agreement, but we also have to adjust our expectations of what the publishers offer. And there are various constraints. It has been mentioned before, the very high APC that the nature journals require, which is one of the reasons why we have a very limited cap for the nature journals in place right now. So these are the two dimensions. One dimension is how much coverage we have with our read and publish agreement in place. We have those agreements where we have a limited number of articles, where we knew from the beginning that we won't cover all our articles. Then we have those deals where we have a cap, where we think probably it will be sufficient to cover all our Swiss articles. And then we also have those deals where we have an unlimited coverage, which means like the most prominent one, which I'm sure you all have heard about, is Elsevier now. We have an unlimited Elsevier deal where we have all our articles covered in the full portfolio, which is a huge success. You might debate about the costs, but it's a huge success that we know now we won't have to pay any extra money either for reading or for publishing within Elsevier journals. But Elsevier is not the only one with whom we have such a deal. There are a couple of other publishers where we have unlimited publishing. And the other dimension which I didn't mention is that not all the publishers have a gold portfolio, or not all publishers are willing to include the gold in the read and publish deals. That's why some of them are below the line in the middle, and with others we managed to include everything, as again Elsevier, but also Cambridge, or for example IOP. If you look at the costs, the question has been asked in the morning, is the transformation cost neutral? This slide does not answer the question whether it's cost neutral, but what it does show is how we managed to switch or shift a large proportion of historical subscription spend to read and publish spend. So what we paid historically just for reading is now used to pay for reading and publishing. As you can see, the first big shift actually happened in 2020. That was mainly because of the Elsevier deal, because Elsevier is just so much bigger than all the other deals we have. But in 2020, we also had the first deal with Springer. And then you can see gradually every year we're adding more agreements. That's the numbers at the bottom. And what you can also see is that actually in 24, we have roughly 90% of the historical subscription journal spend now covering for read and publish, and only 10% is left in subscription agreements only. But if you look at the number of publishers, still half of the publishers that we have a consortial agreement with, we only have subscription agreements. And you can probably also imagine that the negotiations actually don't take less time just because there's less money involved. So trying to fill this gap, trying to move all these publishers to the green bar is going to take quite a lot of work. And in some instances, as I said before, it won't be possible at all because some of the publishers simply don't offer an open access option. And then my final slide to conclude, what does this mean for researchers, or maybe also for you in the libraries? How do we experience a read and publish agreement? And you experience in the way that when an author goes through the publishing workflow, at some point in the workflow, they will be alerted to the fact that they are actually eligible to publish their article open access at no extra cost. And I would like to stress here that no extra cost doesn't mean it's for free, as has become clear in the slides before. Someone is still paying for it, or your institutions are paying for it with your agreement money. But for the author, and that's one of the important things, for the researcher who wants to publish an article, it doesn't incur any additional costs. And there are various ways how publishers make the researcher aware of this fact. Some publishers simply send an email and say, hey, did you know that you're actually eligible to publish open access? Others have it integrated automatically in their submission system, like Cambridge University Press, which really invested a lot of money and really is trying to push towards full open access and recognizes automatically that your article could be open access, or for example, Elsevier, you have to self-identify. You're asked at some point to select your institution, and then they will tell you whether you're eligible or not within an agreement to publish open access. So that's it. And also my final word, I'm not involved at all in this, so I never see these publication workflows myself. That's really something that only the researchers see, and then maybe some of you who manage and are responsible for the to say, yes, it's okay, this author is really affiliated with my institution, you are part of this workflow. But that's not my experience. Okay.